R/AITA stepsister called me dumb and used me as free childcare, so I stole her baby name. AITA for stealing my stepsister's baby name after she called me too dumb to understand real responsibilities? You're literally too stupid to mess this up, so just keep him alive until I get back. Those were the exact words my stepsister Maya threw at me last Tuesday as she shoved her swarming 2-year-old into my arms and bolted out the door for another one of her emergency nail appointments. I stood there in our living room, bouncing little Ethan while he cried for his mom, wondering how the hell I'd become the family's unpaid babysitter when I'm supposedly too dumb to handle anything important. I'm 18, a senior in high school, and according to Maya, my brain is basically decorative. She's 24, pregnant with baby number 2, and apparently the only person in our blended household who understands what real responsibility looks like. Never mind that I've been watching Ethan every weekend for the past 8 months. Never mind that I've missed homecoming, 3 birthday parties, and my best friend's graduation celebration because Maya always has some crisis that requires immediate childcare. Family helps family, she always says, right before disappearing for hours while I'm stuck explaining to a toddler why mommy left without saying goodbye. The thing is, I actually love Ethan. He's this chunky little guy with wild curls who gets excited about everything from bubble baths to finding rocks in the backyard. When he falls asleep in my arms during movie time, or when he toddles over to show me his latest crayon masterpiece, I forget about being angry. But Maya? She makes it impossible to enjoy those moments because she's constantly reminding me that I'm just the backup plan, the family member too dumb for college but smart enough to change diapers. Last month, when I told her I couldn't watch Ethan because I had a chemistry exam to study for, she actually laughed. Chemistry? Seriously? You're worried about some high school test when I'm dealing with morning sickness and doctor appointments? This is what I mean about priorities. You don't understand adult problems. I ended up watching Ethan anyway. Failed the exam too, which just proved her point in her mind. Our parents don't see it. Dad married Maya's mom 3 years ago, and they're so wrapped up in their newlywed bliss that they think Maya and I are just finding our rhythm as sisters. When I try to explain that Maya treats me like hired help, Mom just says I need to be more understanding because pregnancy is hard and she's doing her best as a young mother. But here's what really gets me, Maya isn't struggling financially. She's not a single mom working 3 jobs. Her boyfriend Jake lives here too, and he's perfectly capable of watching his own kid. Maya just prefers having me do it because I'm convenient and don't have anything better to do anyway. The breaking point came 3 weeks ago during Sunday dinner. Maya was telling everyone about her latest ultrasound, glowing as she described her birth plan and nursery themes. Then she started talking about names. We've decided on Aurora if it's a girl, she announced, her hand resting on her growing belly. It means dawn, like a new beginning. I've loved that name since I was little, it's going to be perfect. Everyone cooed appropriately. Even I had to admit it was beautiful. That's when Maya looked directly at me and said, of course, you probably think it's too fancy or complicated. Some people prefer simple names for simple people. The table went quiet. Dad cleared his throat uncomfortably. And that's when I started planning. The Monday after Maya's baby name announcement, I started doing research. Not the kind she'd expect from someone too dumb for college, real research. I spent my free periods in the school library, digging into name databases and state registration records. I learned about name popularity trends, regional variations, even the legal requirements for birth certificates in our state. Maya thought she was so clever, so original with her choice. But Aurora wasn't just some random name she'd fallen in love with. It was the name of our great-grandmother on my mom's side, a woman who died when I was 6 but who used to tell me stories about coming to America with nothing but a suitcase and a dream. Maya had heard Mom mention great-grandma Aurora exactly once at last Christmas dinner, and suddenly it became the name she'd loved since she was little. That lie burned almost as much as the constant insults. The irony is that Maya's boyfriend Jake had no idea about the family connection. When I casually brought up the name during one of our conversations while she was out getting her roots touched up, another emergency that required immediate babysitting, Jake just shrugged. Maya's obsessed with it, he said, scrolling through his phone while Ethan napped between us on the couch. Personally, I liked Emma better, but you know how she gets about having the perfect everything. I did know. Maya approached motherhood the same way she approached everything else, as a performance where she had to prove she was better than everyone around her. The designer nursery, the organic everything, the parenting book she bought but never read because she was too busy telling other people how to raise their kids. What if someone else used the name first? I asked, keeping my voice casual. Like, hypothetically. Jake snorted. Maya would lose her mind. She's already told everyone at work, posted about it on social media, even ordered custom nursery letters. She's convinced no one in our family would ever use that name. He glanced at me with something that might have been sympathy. Lucky for her, right? It's not like anyone else is having kids anytime soon. That week, I started babysitting for the Hendersons down the street. Maya didn't know, I told our parents I was doing homework at the library. Mrs. Henderson paid me $15 an hour to watch her twin boys, and she actually thanked me afterward. She never once implied I was too stupid to handle basic childcare or suggested that watching her kids was the most I could aspire to in life. More importantly, Mrs. Henderson was pregnant. Due in December, 3 months before Maya. The plan crystallized on a Thursday evening when Maya dropped another bombshell at dinner. She decided to take a baby moon vacation with Jake the last weekend before my SAT retake, the test I needed to ace if I had any hope of getting into state university. You don't mind watching Ethan, do you? She asked, but it wasn't really a question. I know you don't have anything important planned, and this is probably our last chance for romance before the baby comes. Dad started to say something about the timing, but Maya cut him off. It's just one weekend. Besides, babysitting is good practice for real-life responsibilities. Maybe it'll teach her something useful for once. That night, I called Mrs. Henderson. She'd been looking for a mother's helper for when the baby came, someone who could assist during those first overwhelming weeks. The pay was good, the hours were flexible, and best of all, she genuinely respected my intelligence. You're so mature for your age, she told me. I wish I'd been half as responsible as you when I was 18. By Friday morning, I'd made my decision. Mrs. Henderson trusted me with something Maya never would, real responsibility. And if she wanted to give her baby a family name, well, I had just as much right to great-grandma Aurora's legacy as Maya did. Maybe more. The conversation with Mrs. Henderson happened on a rainy Saturday morning while Maya was getting yet another prenatal massage. I brought Ethan over to play with the Henderson twins, partly because I genuinely thought he'd enjoy it, and partly because I wanted to see how Mrs. Henderson interacted with kids compared to my stepsister. The difference was night and day. When 3-year-old Marcus spilled juice on the coffee table, Mrs. Henderson just handed him a paper towel and said, "Accidents happen, buddy. Want to help me clean it up?" When Maya's kid made messes at home, she'd usually sigh dramatically and mutter about how some people couldn't handle simple tasks like keeping children under control. "You're really good with them," Mrs. Henderson said as we watched Ethan chase the twins around their backyard. "Have you thought about studying early childhood development? You have natural instincts." I almost laughed. Natural instincts. Maya would have a field day with that one. "Actually," Mrs. Henderson continued, settling her hands on her rounded belly, "I wanted to talk to you about something. My due date got moved up. The doctor thinks this little one might arrive in early November instead of December." My heart started pounding. November would put her a full 4 months ahead of Maya. "The thing is," she went on, "my mother-in-law was supposed to help after the birth, but she just had hip surgery. I know it's a lot to ask, but would you consider being my postpartum helper? It would be official employment, $20 an hour, flexible around your school schedule. You'd help with feeding, diaper changes, light housework. Nothing you haven't already proven you can handle. $20 an hour." Maya had never paid me a cent. "I'd love to," I said, probably too quickly. "When would you need me to start?" "Right after the baby comes home from the hospital. And speaking of which..." She smiled softly, rubbing her belly. "We finally picked out a name. I've been going back and forth for months, but my husband and I decided last night. We're naming her Aurora." The world tilted sideways. "Aurora? It's beautiful, isn't it? It means dawn, new beginnings. Plus, my grandmother's middle name was Aurora, so it feels like honoring family while still being unique. I know it's getting more popular, but I haven't heard of anyone in our circle using it." I managed to nod and smile, but inside I was screaming. This was too perfect. Too absolutely, impossibly perfect. Mrs. Henderson was due in November. Maya wasn't due until February. If I helped with baby Aurora Henderson's birth registration, if I was there for those first precious weeks, taking photos, posting about my work family, Maya would see it everywhere. Her special, unique, perfect name, used first by the girl she considered too stupid for real responsibilities. "That's a gorgeous name," I said, and meant it. "Aurora Henderson. It has such a nice ring to it." "I think so too. And between you and me," Mrs. Henderson lowered her voice conspiratorially, "I'm hoping she'll be an early November baby. I have this superstition about autumn birthdays being lucky." That evening, I sat in my room doing homework while Maya raved about her massage and complained about Jake forgetting to pick up her prenatal vitamins. Through my bedroom wall, I could hear her on the phone with one of her friends, talking about nursery decorations and how absolutely perfect baby Aurora's room was going to be. She had no idea that in less than 2 months, there would already be an Aurora. A baby I'd help welcome into the world, a child whose first weeks I'd document and celebrate. Maya's followers would see the photos. Her co-workers would hear the stories. And Maya would finally understand what it felt like to be second choice. The first complication came 2 weeks later, and it wasn't one I'd anticipated. I was in the middle of my chemistry makeup exam when my phone buzzed with a text from Maya, "Emergency at doctor's office. Need you to get Ethan from daycare now. No excuses." I stared at the message, my pencil frozen over a half-finished equation. This was exactly the kind of thing that had been happening for months, but this time felt different. This time, I had somewhere else to be afterward. Mrs. Henderson had asked me to help her set up the nursery, and more importantly, she was paying me for my time. I raised my hand. "Mr. Peterson? I need to leave. Family emergency." He glanced at the clock. I still had 20 minutes left on the test that could determine whether I got into state university. "Miss Rodriguez, you can't retake this exam again." "Are you sure?" Maya's follow-up text was already lighting up my phone. "Where are you?" "Ethan is crying and they won't release him to Jake because he's not on the pickup list." "I'm at the hospital." "Hospital?" That changed things, didn't it? I grabbed my backpack and rushed out, leaving half my chemistry test blank. 45 minutes later, I was sitting in Maya's car outside the pediatrician's office, not the hospital, listening to her complain about how the receptionist had attitude and how the doctor was totally overreacting to what turned out to be a routine ear infection check. I said emergency, she snapped when I pointed out that this could have waited 2 hours. Ear infections are emergencies when you're a real parent. But I wouldn't expect you to understand the difference. I bit my tongue and drove to the Henderson house with Ethan in his car seat, Maya following behind in Jake's truck because she didn't trust me to handle drop-off at their house alone. When Mrs. Henderson opened the door and saw the convoy, her eyebrows shot up. "Oh. I wasn't expecting. Is everything okay?" "Family stuff," I said quickly, but Maya was already pushing past me into the foyer. "You must be the neighbor," Maya said, extending her hand with that fake smile she used on people she was sizing up. "I'm Maya, the stepsister. I hope our girl here isn't too much trouble." "She means well, but she's still learning about real responsibility." Mrs. Henderson's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. "Actually, she's been wonderful. Very mature and reliable." "Oh, that's sweet of you to say." Maya's laugh had an edge to it. "Though I guess babysitting a couple of elementary school kids is pretty different from handling a newborn. Speaking of which, when are you due?" "You look ready to pop." "November," Mrs. Henderson said carefully. "How exciting. Do you have a name picked out?" My stomach dropped. This wasn't part of the plan. Maya wasn't supposed to meet Mrs. Henderson. They weren't supposed to have conversations about babies and names and due dates. "We do," Mrs. Henderson said, her hand moving protectively to her belly. "Aurora." The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. I watched Maya's face cycle through confusion, recognition, and something that looked like panic. "Aurora?" Maya's voice cracked slightly. That's interesting. It's not a very common name around here." "I know. That's part of why we love it. It feels special, you know? Unique." Maya's knuckles were white where she gripped Ethan's diaper bag. When in November are you due? Early November. Maybe even late October if this little one decides to come early. I could practically see Maya doing the math in her head. October. November. December. January. February. 4 months. Mrs. Henderson's Aurora would be 4 months old before Maya's Aurora was even born. Well, Maya said, her voice artificially bright, I should get Ethan home for his nap. Come on, stepsister. We need to talk. The car ride home was silent except for Ethan's babbling in the backseat and the sound of Maya's nails drumming against the steering wheel. I kept my eyes on the passing houses, trying to look casual while my heart hammered against my ribs. So, Maya finally said as we pulled into our driveway, Aurora Henderson. What are the odds? Pretty crazy coincidence, I managed, unbuckling my seatbelt with hands that I hoped weren't shaking. Maya didn't move to get out of the car. Instead, she turned to face me fully, her eyes narrowed. You know what's really crazy? That you've been babysitting for a pregnant woman named Aurora and somehow never mentioned it. Not once. Even though you know how important that name is to me. I didn't think. Right. You didn't think. Maya's voice was getting sharper. Because thinking isn't really your strong suit, is it? But here's what I find interesting, Mrs. Henderson seems to think you're some kind of childcare expert. Very mature and reliable, she said. Funny how she has such a different opinion of your capabilities than your own family does. Ethan started fussing in his car seat, probably picking up on the tension. I reached back to hand him his stuffed elephant, but Maya grabbed my wrist. How long have you been working for her? A few weeks, I said, which was technically true if you didn't count all the preliminary conversations and planning. A few weeks. Maya released my wrist and laughed, but there was no humor in it. And in those few weeks, did it ever occur to you to mention that your pregnant employer chose the exact same name as your stepsister? The name I've been planning for months? I could feel the lie building in my throat, the easy explanation that would smooth everything over. But something about the way she said your pregnant employer, like Mrs. Henderson, was less important than Maya, like her baby mattered less, made me stubborn. It's not exactly an uncommon name, I said instead. And Mrs. Henderson has family reasons for choosing it. Her grandmother. Family reasons. Maya's voice went deadly quiet. What family reasons? I realized my mistake immediately, but it was too late to take it back. Maya's eyes were boring into mine, and I could see the exact moment she connected the dots. Our great-grandmother, she whispered. You told her about our great-grandmother Aurora. Maya. You gave her our family story. Maya was breathing hard now, her face flushed. You handed over our family history to some random neighbor so she could steal my baby's name. She didn't steal anything. She chose the name because you fed her the perfect sob story about great-grandma Aurora and her American dream, right? God, you're even more manipulative than I thought. Ethan started crying in earnest now, his wails filling the small car. Maya twisted around to shush him, but her hands were shaking with anger. Here's what's going to happen, she said, her voice barely controlled. You're going to call Mrs. Henderson tonight and tell her there's been a family emergency. You're quitting the babysitting job, and you're going to suggest, very subtly, that maybe Aurora isn't the best name choice after all. I'm not doing that. Yes, you are. Because if you don't, I'm telling Dad and Mom exactly how you've been manipulating this situation. How you've been feeding our family stories to strangers and undermining your pregnant stepsister during one of the most stressful times of her life. You can't prove I told her anything. Maya smiled, and it was the coldest expression I'd ever seen on her face. Can't I? Because I think if I called Mrs. Henderson right now and asked her where she heard about Aurora being a family name, she'd be very happy to tell me all about the sweet stories her babysitter shared. My throat felt like sandpaper. Maya, please. You have until tomorrow morning to fix this. And if you don't. She finally got out of the car, wrestling Ethan from his seat. Well, let's just say you'll learn what real consequences feel like. That night, I lay awake staring at my ceiling until 3 a.m., Maya's ultimatum echoing in my head. Every time I started to drift off, I'd hear her voice, you'll learn what real consequences feel like. By morning, I'd made my decision. I wasn't calling Mrs. Henderson to quit, and I definitely wasn't sabotaging her name choice. Maya could throw whatever tantrum she wanted, I was done being her doormat. What I didn't expect was to wake up to 17 missed calls from Mrs. Henderson. The first voicemail was timestamped at 5:47 a.m. Hi honey, I'm so sorry to call this early, but I'm at the hospital. My water broke around midnight. Baby Aurora decided she couldn't wait until November after all. My hand shook as I played the next message, the labor's progressing faster than expected. I know this is short notice, but is there any way you could come help when we bring her home? Maybe later today if everything goes well? The final message, left just 20 minutes ago, she's here. 7 pounds, 2 ounces, and absolutely perfect. Aurora Rose Henderson, born October 15th at 6:23 a.m. I can't wait for you to meet her. October 15th, Maya's baby wasn't due for 4 more months. I was still processing this when my bedroom door flew open without a knock. Maya stood in the doorway in her pajamas, her phone clutched in her hand and her face white with fury. You did this on purpose, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Somehow, you orchestrated this whole thing. Maya, I swear I had no idea she was going into labor. Bullshit. She stepped into my room and closed the door behind her. Mrs. Henderson just posted on the neighborhood Facebook group. Welcome baby Aurora, with a whole album of pictures. Do you know how I found out? My coworkers started texting me congratulations, thinking it was MY baby because I'd been talking about the name Aurora for months. I sat up in bed, my heart racing. That's not my fault. Isn't it? Maya pulled up something on her phone and shoved it in my face. It was a Facebook post from Mrs. Henderson, a photo of a tiny, red-faced baby in a pink hospital blanket, with a caption, Aurora Rose Henderson made her surprise debut this morning. Special thanks to our amazing teenage helper who's going to make these first weeks so much easier. We're so grateful for mature, responsible people in our lives. Hashtag blessed with the best hashtag Aurora Rose hashtag new mom life. Mature, responsible people, Maya read aloud. She's literally bragging about you on social media while my own family thinks I'm too incompetent to handle basic childcare without dumping it on my stepsister. Maya, I never said anything bad about you. You didn't have to. Don't you see what you've done? Maya sank into my desk chair, looking suddenly exhausted. Everyone's going to think I copied her. My own coworkers, my friends, my boyfriend's family, they're all going to think I'm so unoriginal that I stole a baby name from my neighbor. For a split second, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered every time she'd called me stupid, every social event I'd missed because of her emergencies, every time she'd made me feel small and worthless. Maybe you could choose a different name, I suggested quietly. Maya's head snapped up. Excuse me? There are lots of beautiful names out there. Emma, like Jake suggested. Or something completely different. It might actually be nice to have something that's just yours, instead of. I trailed off, realizing I'd said too much. Instead of what? Maya's voice was dangerously calm. Nothing. I just meant. Instead of a family name that doesn't actually belong to me? Is that what you were going to say? Maya stood up slowly. Because here's the thing, little stepsister. I know exactly what game you've been playing. She moved closer to my bed, and I instinctively pressed back against my pillows. Great-Grandma Aurora wasn't just Mom's grandmother. She was mine too, through marriage. And unlike you, I actually remember her. You were 6 when she died. I was 12. I spent summers at her house, helped her in her garden, listened to her stories about coming to America. My stomach dropped. Maya. So when I chose that name, it wasn't because I heard it mentioned once at Christmas dinner. It was because I loved her, and I wanted to honor her memory. But somehow, you twisted that into me being fake and stealing family history. She leaned down until we were eye level. You want to know what real consequences look like? Mrs. Henderson's baby is going to grow up in this neighborhood. She's going to be in the same school district as my daughter. They're going to be in the same classes, the same activities, and every single person is going to remember that Aurora Henderson came first. The weight of what I'd actually done started settling in my chest like a stone. This wasn't just about a name anymore. This was about 2 little girls who would spend their whole lives being compared to each other because of my revenge plot. But here's the beautiful part, Maya continued, straightening up with a smile that made my blood run cold. You're going to fix this. Because if you don't, I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly how manipulative and calculating you really are. Starting with Mrs. Henderson herself. Maya's threat hung in the air like smoke, but before I could respond, my phone buzzed with another call from Mrs. Henderson. Maya and I both stared at the screen, her name flashing insistently. Answer it, Maya whispered, settling back into my desk chair with crossed arms. Put it on speaker. My finger hovered over the decline button, but Maya's expression made it clear that wasn't an option. I swiped to accept and tapped the speaker icon with trembling hands. Oh, thank goodness. Mrs. Henderson's voice filled my small bedroom, exhausted but happy. I was hoping you'd seen my messages. I know this is incredibly last minute, but could you possibly come by this afternoon? We're being discharged around 2, and I could really use the help getting settled at home. Maya raised an eyebrow, waiting to see how I'd handle this. Of course, I managed. I'd love to meet Aurora. Wonderful. And actually, there's something else I wanted to discuss with you. After seeing how mature you are with the Henderson boys, my sister-in-law mentioned she might want to hire you too. She's due in January and has been looking for reliable help. The pay would be even better, $25 an hour. You're building quite the reputation as a neighborhood baby whisperer. Maya's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. January. Another pregnant woman. More opportunities slipping away from her control. That sounds amazing, I said, my confidence growing despite Maya's presence. I'd definitely be interested. Perfect. We can talk details later. Oh, and one more thing, I posted some photos on Facebook this morning and the response has been incredible. Everyone's asking about our amazing helper. I hope you don't mind, but I mentioned your name to a few people who were asking for babysitting recommendations. You might get some calls. After we hung up, Maya sat in silence for a long moment, staring at my phone like it had personally betrayed her. $25 an hour, she finally said. For babysitting. It's not just babysitting. It's newborn care, postpartum support dash. It's exactly what I've been having you do for free for 8 months. Maya's voice was sharp. Except now you're getting paid for it. By strangers. While your own family gets nothing. I felt a surge of anger that surprised me with its intensity. Maybe because strangers actually appreciate what I do instead of constantly telling me I'm too stupid to handle real responsibilities. Oh, so this is about appreciation? Maya laughed, but it sounded forced. You want me to thank you every time you watch Ethan? Give you a gold star for doing what family members are supposed to do? I want you to stop treating me like I'm worthless. The words came out louder than I'd intended, and we both froze, listening for sounds of our parents stirring down the hall. When the house remained quiet, Maya leaned forward in her chair. You think I treat you like you're worthless? You literally called me too stupid to mess up keeping a toddler alive. You've told people I'm not smart enough for college. You act like watching Ethan is the highest achievement I'm capable of, then get mad when other people actually value my help. Maya was quiet for so long I thought maybe she was finally understanding how her words affected me. Then she pulled out her phone and started typing. What are you doing? Texting Mrs. Henderson. I think she should know that her amazing helper has been sharing private family information with neighbors and manipulating situations for personal gain. Maya, don't dash. Or maybe I should call her directly. Have a heart-to-heart about how you've been playing us against each other. Maya's finger hovered over Mrs. Henderson's contact information. I wonder how amazing she'll think you are when she realizes you've been using her baby as a weapon against your pregnant stepsister. The worst part was that she wasn't entirely wrong. My phone buzzed with a text before Maya could make good on her threat. It was from Dad, family meeting in the kitchen. Now. Both of you. Maya and I exchanged glances. Neither of us moved to get up. Maya. Elena. Kitchen. Mom's voice carried up the stairs, sharp with irritation. Shit, Maya muttered, shoving her phone into her pajama pocket. Someone must have seen Mrs. Henderson's Facebook post. We found our parents sitting at the kitchen table with coffee mugs and grim expressions. Dad's laptop was open between them, displaying what I recognized as a neighborhood Facebook group page. Sit, Dad said without looking up from the screen. Maya and I took chairs across from them, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Mom turned the laptop around so we could see the screen clearly. Mrs. Henderson's baby announcement was there, but so was something else, a comment thread that made my stomach drop. Linda Morrison had written, "Congratulations." Though I have to ask, didn't Maya Rodriguez announce months ago that she was naming her baby Aurora? What are the odds of two babies in the same neighborhood having the same unusual name? Below that, Jennifer Kim had responded, "I was thinking the same thing. Maya's been talking about that name at the school pickup for weeks. This is so awkward." 3 more neighbors had chimed in with variations of the same observation. The thread had 16 comments and counting. Care to explain? Mom asked, her voice dangerously calm. Maya jumped in first. It's exactly what it looks like. Elena's been working for Mrs. Henderson behind our backs and somehow convinced her to use the name I've been planning for my daughter for months. That's not what happened. I protested, but Dad held up a hand. Elena, is it true that you've been babysitting for the Hendersons without telling us? I mentioned a dash. No, you didn't, Mom interrupted. You said you were studying at the library. Multiple times. We specifically asked about your schedule because Maya needed help with Ethan. My cheeks burned. I was trying to earn money for college dash. By lying to your family and sabotaging your sister's pregnancy plans? Dad's disappointment was worse than if he just yelled at me. She's not my sister, I snapped before I could stop myself. And I didn't sabotage anything. Mrs. Henderson chose that name for her own reasons. After you told her about great-grandma Aurora, Maya said smoothly. After you shared our family stories and made sure she'd have an emotional connection to the name. Mom's expression shifted. Elena, you shared family stories with the neighbors? I just mentioned that Aurora was my great-grandmother's name when Mrs. Henderson said she was considering it dash. When? Maya pounced on the detail. When exactly did she first mention considering that name? I felt the trap closing around me, but there was no way out now. A few weeks ago, when I first started helping her. So she mentioned it after you started working there, Dad said slowly. After you would have had time to suggest family names during your conversations. It wasn't like that dash. Then what was it like? Mom leaned forward. Because from where we're sitting, it looks like you deliberately interfered with Maya's name choice out of spite. Maya pulled out her phone and started scrolling. Actually, I think I can prove it was deliberate. Elena, when exactly did Mrs. Henderson first tell you she was considering the name Aurora? What date? I don't remember the exact dash. Because I've been posting about my baby name choice since early September. My Instagram, my Facebook, even my work group chat. Everyone who knows me has known about Aurora for over a month. Maya turned her phone screen toward our parents. Look at this post from September 8th, can't wait to meet baby Aurora in February. And this one from September 15th about ordering custom nursery letters. Mom took the phone and scrolled through Maya's posts, her expression growing more concerned. Elena, these are all dated before you started working for Mrs. Henderson. You knew Maya had chosen this name. Lots of people choose the same names dash. Not when one of them is your stepsister who's been excited about it for months, Dad said firmly. And definitely not when you're actively encouraging someone else to use it after hearing our family stories. Maya leaned back in her chair with a satisfied expression. Plus, look at the timing. Mrs. Henderson's baby was born yesterday, October 15th. My baby isn't due until February 20th. Elena's employer gets to use the name first, and everyone in the neighborhood gets to watch me look like I copied her. That's enough, Mom said, closing the laptop. Elena, you're going to call Mrs. Henderson today and quit your babysitting job. You're also going to apologize to Maya and help her figure out how to handle this situation with the neighbors. What? No. I stood up so quickly my chair scraped against the floor. This isn't fair. Maya treats me like garbage, calls me stupid, takes advantage of me constantly, and now I'm the villain for finally finding somewhere that appreciates what I do. Sit down, Dad's voice was sharp. We're not done talking. But I was done listening. 8 months of being Maya's unpaid servant, of missing important events, of being told I was too dumb for real responsibilities, and now my own parents were taking her side without even hearing the whole story. You know what? Fine. Ground me, take away my phone, whatever. But I'm not quitting, and I'm not apologizing for finally being treated like I matter. I stormed toward the kitchen door, but Maya's voice stopped me cold. Actually, there's one more thing, she said sweetly. Elena, do you want to tell them about your college plans, or should I? Maya's words hit me like a physical blow. My college plans, how could she possibly know about my college plans? What are you talking about? I tried to keep my voice steady, but everyone could hear the panic creeping in. Maya's smile was predatory. Oh, you haven't told them? About how you've been using your babysitting money to pay for college application fees? About how you've been meeting with Mrs. Chen, the guidance counselor, every Tuesday during lunch to work on your applications? My parents' expression shifted from disappointed to confused. Dad leaned forward. Elena, we thought you decided against applying to four-year schools. You said the SAT scores weren't good enough. They weren't, I said weakly. The first time. But you retook them, Maya continued, clearly enjoying herself. In fact, didn't you leave your makeup chemistry exam early a few weeks ago to help with one of my emergencies? The exam that would have boosted your GPA enough for state university's minimum requirements? Mom's coffee mug hit the table harder than necessary. You've been planning to apply to state? Elena, we've been talking about community college for months. We've already looked at their early childhood education program. I know, but I want to study chemistry. Maybe pre-med. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Mrs. Henderson thinks I'm smart enough. She's been helping me research schools that have good science programs and financial aid. The kitchen went dead silent. Dad rubbed his forehead like he was getting a headache. Mrs. Henderson has been helping you research colleges? Mom's voice was dangerously quiet. A woman you've known for a few weeks is giving you academic advice instead of your family? Because my family thinks I'm too stupid for college. The frustration exploded out of me. Maya's been telling me for months that I'm not smart enough for real responsibilities, and you guys just nod along. Mrs. Henderson is the first person who's ever said I might actually have potential for something more than changing diapers. Maya laughed, sharp and bitter. Oh, that's rich. So this whole thing was about proving you're smart? You sabotaged my baby's name to show off your intelligence? I didn't sabotage anything. I've been working hard, saving money, trying to build a future that doesn't involve being your unpaid babysitter forever. Unpaid? Maya's eyebrows shot up. Elena, we're family. I don't pay Jake to help with Ethan either. Jake is Ethan's father. And Jake doesn't miss his own life events because you have constant emergencies that only happen when something important is happening to someone else. Dad held up both hands. Everyone stop. Elena, why didn't you tell us you were planning to apply to four-year schools? The honest answer, because I knew they'd find a way to talk me out of it, because Maya would convince them I was being unrealistic, because it was easier to plan in secret than fight for permission, stuck in my throat. I wanted to see if I could actually get in first, I said instead. There was no point getting everyone's hopes up if I wasn't good enough anyway. But you felt comfortable discussing your future with Mrs. Henderson, Mom said. A neighbor you barely know. She doesn't think I'm stupid. Maya snorted. Nobody thinks you're stupid, Elena. Dramatic? Definitely. Manipulative? Obviously. But not stupid. You literally told me last week that I was too dumb to understand adult problems. I said you don't understand priorities, Maya shot back. There's a difference between being unintelligent and being selfish. Before I could respond, Dad's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and frowned. It's Mrs. Henderson. We all stared at his phone as it continued ringing. Maya's face went pale. Don't answer it, she whispered. But Dad was already swiping to accept. Hello, Mrs. Henderson. Congratulations on your new arrival. Even from across the table, I could hear Mrs. Henderson's cheerful voice through the speaker. Thank you so much. Actually, I'm calling because I wanted to discuss Elena's college applications with you and your wife. Elena's college applications? Dad repeated, his eyes locked on mine across the kitchen table. Mrs. Henderson's voice continued cheerfully through the speaker. Yes. She's been so modest about her achievements. I had no idea she was ranked in the top 15% of her class until I helped her compile her application materials. And her essay about using childcare experiences to explore developmental psychology? Absolutely brilliant. Maya's mouth fell open. Mom gripped her coffee mug so tightly I thought it might shatter. Mrs. Henderson, Dad said slowly, I think there might be some confusion. Elena hasn't discussed college applications with us. Oh. Her voice faltered slightly. Oh dear, I hope I haven't overstepped. Elena mentioned that you were still working out the financial details, so when I saw how passionate she was about early childhood development, I offered to write her a recommendation letter. She's truly exceptional with children, mature beyond her years. The kitchen felt like it was shrinking around me. I could see Maya calculating behind her eyes, probably figuring out exactly how to use this against me. A recommendation letter, Mom repeated flatly. For State University's developmental psychology program and 3 backup schools. Elena's been so thorough in her research. Did you know State offers a dual track where she could study child development and pre-med? It's perfect for someone with her combination of natural empathy and scientific curiosity. Dad's jaw twitched. Mrs. Henderson, could we call you back? We're in the middle of a family discussion. Of course. Actually, that works perfectly because I wanted to invite you all over to meet baby Aurora this week. Elena's been such a blessing to our family. I'd love to thank you in person for raising such a wonderful young woman. After Dad hung up, the silence stretched until it became unbearable. Maya was the first to break it. Top 15%, she said, her voice incredulous. Elena, your grades were terrible freshman year. You failed biology twice. I retook it over the summer, I mumbled. And got an A. When? Mom demanded. You said you were volunteering at the library all summer. Another lie exposed. My carefully constructed web of deception was unraveling faster than I could patch the holes. I was volunteering. Before summer school started each day. Dad leaned back in his chair, studying me like I was a stranger. Elena, how long have you been lying to us about where you spend your time? I wasn't lying exactly. Bullshit, Maya interrupted. You've been living a completely separate life. Secret job, secret college plans, secret academic achievements. What else haven't you told us? The worst part was that she looked genuinely hurt underneath the anger. Like my deception had actually wounded her, which seemed impossible given how she'd been treating me. I have a right to privacy, I said defensively. Privacy is one thing, Dad said. This is deception. Major life decisions made without family input, using neighbors as guidance counselors, building relationships based on incomplete information. He gestured toward his phone. Mrs. Henderson clearly has no idea about the family dynamics here. Maya stood up abruptly. You know what? I need air. This is insane. She headed for the back door, then turned around. But Elena? When you inevitably screw this up, when Mrs. Henderson figures out who you really are, don't come crying to me about how unfair everyone's being. The door slammed behind her, leaving me alone with my parents' disappointed stares. Elena, Mom said quietly, we need to know everything. Right now. No more secrets, no more half-truths. What else have you been hiding from us? I looked at their faces, hurt, confused, angry, and realized I crossed a line I couldn't uncross. Maya wasn't the only one who was going to learn about real consequences. The truth came spilling out like water from a broken dam. I told them about the Henderson job starting in August, about retaking my SATs in September, about the college applications I'd submitted 2 weeks ago. I explained about summer school biology, about meeting with Mrs. Chen during lunch periods, about the recommendation letters from 3 teachers who actually believed I had potential. With each revelation, my parents' expressions grew more bewildered. By the time I finished, Dad was rubbing his temples and Mom was staring at the table like it held answers to questions she didn't know how to ask. 15 college applications, Mom said finally. How did you even pay for that? Babysitting money. And Mrs. Chen helped me get fee waivers for 6 of them because of our financial situation. I winced as soon as I said it. I mean, because we're not exactly wealthy. You told your guidance counselor about our finances? Dad's voice was dangerously low. Elena, what exactly did you share about this family with these people? Before I could answer, my phone buzzing interrupted us. Text message from an unknown number. Hi. This is Sarah Martinez from Elmwood Street. Mrs. Henderson gave me your number. I'm due in January and looking for reliable childcare help. Could we set up a time to talk? Willing to pay $30 per hour for the right person. Mom leaned over to read the message, her face darkening. $30 an hour. For babysitting. It's not just babysitting, I protested. It's newborn care, sleep training, developmental support. It's what Maya's been asking you to do for free, Dad interrupted. And now half the neighborhood wants to hire you for it. Another text popped up, this one from someone named Janet Wilson. Mrs. Henderson raved about you at playgroup today. My twins are due in December, any chance you'd be interested in part-time help? Great references and competitive pay. Then another, Elena Rodriguez? This is Kim from Oak Avenue. Heard you're amazing with babies. Call me. I stared at my phone as message after message rolled in. In the span of 10 minutes, I'd gone from secretly working one babysitting job to apparently being the most in-demand childcare provider in a 3-block radius. Jesus Christ, Mom muttered, reading over my shoulder. How many people did Mrs. Henderson tell? I don't know, I said honestly. She mentioned posting on the neighborhood group, but I didn't think. That's the problem, Dad said sharply. You didn't think. About how this would affect Maya, about how it would reflect on our family, about anything beyond your own plans. The back door opened and Maya walked back in, her face flushed from cold air and anger. She took one look at my phone, still buzzing with incoming messages, and laughed bitterly. Let me guess, she said, settling back into her chair. The great Elena Rodriguez is now the neighborhood's golden child babysitter? Maya, Mom started, but Maya held up a hand. No, this is actually perfect. Because now everyone gets to see exactly what's been happening here. She pulled out her own phone and started scrolling. Look at this comment thread on Mrs. Henderson's post. Rebecca Kim wrote, so lucky you found such great help. Maya Rodriguez's stepsister has always seemed so responsible. And Linda Morrison replied, makes you wonder why Maya always looks so stressed if she has such reliable family support right there. My stomach dropped. Maya, I never said anything about you to these people. You didn't have to say anything, Maya snapped. Your actions said it all. Perfect, reliable Elena who's mature beyond her years, versus hot mess Maya who can't handle her own kids without dumping them on family. Dad's phone rang again. This time it was a number none of us recognized. Don't answer it, I pleaded, but he was already accepting the call. Mr. Rodriguez? This is Janet Wilson from Maple Street. I hope you don't mind me calling, but I got your number from the school directory. I wanted to personally thank you for raising such an exceptional young woman. Your Elena has quite the reputation around here. Dad's face cycled through several emotions as Mrs. Wilson gushed about my exceptional maturity and natural gift with children. When she started asking about my availability for her December twins, he finally cut her off. Mrs. Wilson, I appreciate the call, but Elena's schedule is complicated right now. We'll need to discuss this as a family. Of course. I completely understand. Just know that Mrs. Henderson spoke so highly of her. We're all impressed by how you've raised such a responsible teenager. It's rare to find young people with that level of initiative and trustworthiness. After he hung up, the kitchen felt like a pressure cooker about to explode. Maya was staring at the table, her hands clenched into fists. Mom looked like she was trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. Initiative and trustworthiness, Maya repeated slowly. That's what the neighbors think of Elena. Meanwhile, I'm the incompetent mother who can't handle her own family. That's not what anyone thinks, I started, but Maya's laugh cut me off. Really? Because I just got a text from my coworker asking if everything's okay at home since even my teenage stepsister is having to help other families instead of my own. She held up her phone. Apparently someone from her neighborhood playgroup knows someone in our neighborhood playgroup, and now my work drama is becoming public entertainment. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Mrs. Henderson. Honey, I hope I didn't cause any family tension earlier. Your dad seemed surprised about the college applications. I'd be happy to speak with your parents about what a bright future you have ahead of you. Aurora and I are so grateful for everything you've done for our family. Mom read the message over my shoulder and made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a groan. She wants to advocate for your bright future. A woman you've known for 6 weeks wants to convince us your college material. Because she actually sees what I'm capable of, I shot back. Instead of just assuming I'm only good enough to be Maya's backup babysitter forever. There it is, Maya said, pointing at me like she'd won something. That's what this is really about. You think you're too good to help family, so you'd rather get paid by strangers who don't know any better. I think I'm tired of being taken for granted. Taken for granted? Maya's voice pitched higher. Elena, I've been including you in Ethan's life since day one. Teaching you about child development, showing you how to handle tantrums, letting you practice parenting skills. You've been using me as free labor while telling everyone I'm too stupid for college. I never said you were too stupid for college. I said you weren't ready for the responsibility. Dad slammed his palm on the table, making all of us jump. Enough. Both of you. He looked exhausted. Maya, Elena has clearly been handling more responsibility than any of us realized. Elena, Maya has legitimate concerns about how you've been managing these situations. My phone rang in my hand. Unknown number again. This time I declined the call, but it immediately rang again from a different number. Turn it off, Mom said. Right now. I powered down my phone, but the damage was already done. In the space of one morning, I'd gone from secret overachiever to neighborhood sensation, and Maya had gone from pregnant stepsister to public example of family dysfunction. Here's what's going to happen, Dad said, his voice carrying the tone that meant no arguments. Elena, you're taking a break from all babysitting jobs until we sort this out. Maya, you and Jake are going to figure out childcare arrangements that don't rely on Elena. What? Both Maya and I said simultaneously. And both of you are going to explain to me how we got to the point where neighbors know more about this family's dynamics than the people actually living in this house. The look that passed between Maya and me was probably the first time we'd been united about anything in months. We were both in deep trouble, and there was no one else to blame. The intervention started the next morning. I woke up to find Mom sitting at my desk, my laptop open in front of her, scrolling through what looked like my email account. The sight of her reading my private messages made my stomach lurch, but before I could protest, she held up a hand. 17 acceptance emails, she said without looking at me. 17. From schools I've never heard you mention. Including a full scholarship offer from Mason University for their developmental psychology program. I sat up in bed, my heart hammering. You went through my email? Your guidance counselor called at 7 a.m. asking about your FAFSA information because apparently you're missing financial aid documentation for 3 schools that want to fast-track your applications. Mom finally turned to face me, and her expression was unreadable. She seemed very confused about why you'd listed our household income as significantly lower than it actually is. The room felt like it was tilting. I used the numbers from Dad's tax forms from 2 years ago when he was unemployed. Elena, that's financial aid fraud. The words hit me like cold water. Fraud. I hadn't thought of it as fraud. I thought of it as creative interpretation. I can fix it, I said quickly. I'll call Mrs. Chen and update everything. Mrs. Chen is the least of our problems right now. Mom closed the laptop and crossed her arms. Because while you were building your secret academic empire, Maya spent the night in the emergency room. My blood turned to ice. What? Stress-induced contractions. She's fine, the baby's fine, but the doctor wants her on bed rest for the next week. Mom's voice was carefully controlled. Jake called us at 3 a.m. because Maya was having panic attacks about the neighborhood situation and started having pain. The guilt hit me so hard I couldn't breathe. Is she okay? Can I? You can stay away from her right now, Mom said firmly. Because according to Jake, she spent 4 hours crying about how everyone thinks she's an incompetent mother compared to her teenage stepsister. I pulled my knees to my chest, trying to make myself smaller. This wasn't supposed to happen. Maya was supposed to realize she'd been treating me badly, not end up in the hospital. There's more, Mom continued. Mrs. Henderson called this morning. Apparently 3 different neighbors contacted her last night asking detailed questions about your background, your family situation, and whether you'd be available for permanent nanny positions. Permanent nanny positions? $25 to $40 an hour. Full-time summer work. College tuition assistance. Mom's laugh was hollow. One family offered to sponsor your education in exchange for a 3-year childcare contract. My phone, still powered off from yesterday, sat on my nightstand like a bomb waiting to explode. I was afraid to turn it on, afraid to see how much bigger this had gotten overnight. Mom, I never meant for any of this to happen. Didn't you? She leaned forward. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you orchestrated a pretty comprehensive campaign to prove that Maya doesn't deserve the respect you think you do. Before I could respond, Dad appeared in my doorway holding a steaming coffee mug and looking like he hadn't slept in days. Elena, we need to talk, he said. All of us. Right now. What about Maya? Maya's at the doctor getting checked again. Jake's with her. Dad's expression was grim. But before she left, she said something that I think you need to hear. He pulled out his phone and scrolled to a text message thread. She asked me to read this to you. Tell Elena she won. Everyone thinks she's perfect and I'm a mess. But when this blows up in her face, and it will, I won't be there to help pick up the pieces. The message felt like a physical blow. Maya never backed down from anything, never admitted defeat. If she was giving up the fight, that meant I'd broken something that couldn't be fixed. And deep down, I was starting to realize she might be right about it blowing up in my face. The explosion came 3 days later, and it wasn't from Maya. I was sitting in AP Chemistry, finally feeling like maybe things were stabilizing, when Mrs. Patterson's voice crackled over the intercom. Elena Rodriguez to the main office immediately. Bring your belongings. The classroom went dead silent. 30 pairs of eyes followed me as I gathered my books, my face burning with embarrassment. In the hallway, I passed 2 girls from my English class whispering behind their hands, and I caught the words babysitting scandal and college fraud. Mrs. Chen was waiting in her office with Principal Martinez and a woman I didn't recognize wearing a business suit. The stranger had a briefcase and the kind of expression that meant I was in serious trouble. Elena, please sit, Principal Martinez said. This is Mrs. Foster from the State University Admissions Office. My stomach dropped into my shoes. Mrs. Foster opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder that I recognized as my application materials. Miss Rodriguez, we need to discuss some discrepancies in your application, she said, her voice professionally neutral. Specifically regarding your family situation, your work experience, and the recommendation letters submitted on your behalf. Mrs. Chen avoided my eyes. Elena, someone contacted the university yesterday with concerns about the accuracy of your application materials. What kind of concerns? My voice came out as a whisper. Mrs. Foster consulted her notes. According to the complaint we received, you misrepresented your childcare experience as professional employment when it was actually unpaid family assistance. You also allegedly manipulated personal relationships with employers to gain favorable recommendations based on incomplete information about your character. The room started spinning. Who filed a complaint? The complainant requested anonymity, but they provided very detailed information about your family dynamics and recent conflicts. Mrs. Foster's expression softened slightly. Miss Rodriguez, I understand that family situations can be complicated, but academic fraud is a serious matter. It wasn't fraud, I said desperately. Everything I wrote was true. I do have experience with childcare, I am a reliable employee. But did you tell Mrs. Henderson about your family conflicts when she agreed to write your recommendation? Mrs. Foster interrupted. Did you explain that your professional babysitting experience included a contentious situation with your pregnant stepsister? I opened my mouth but no words came out. Mrs. Chen finally spoke up. Elena, Mrs. Henderson called me this morning. She's very concerned about the situation. Apparently several neighbors have been asking her questions about your family background, and some of the information doesn't match what you told her. What kind of questions? About why you needed work so desperately. About family tensions. About whether she knew you were using her baby's name to hurt your stepsister. Mrs. Foster was reading directly from her notes now. Mrs. Henderson feels that she may have been misled about the nature of your employment. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Someone had called Mrs. Henderson. Someone had poisoned her opinion of me by giving her Maya's version of events. Mrs. Henderson wants to withdraw her recommendation letter, Mrs. Chen said quietly. She's also concerned about the other families who have contacted you for work. She feels responsible for recommending you without having complete information. My college dreams were crumbling in real time. Can I talk to her? Can I explain what really happened? Miss Rodriguez, Mrs. Foster said, closing her folder, State University is suspending your application pending a full review. We'll need to interview all parties involved, including your family members and the Henderson family. As I walked out of the office 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Heard about your meeting today. Told you this would blow up in your face. Maybe next time you'll think twice before playing games with people's lives. It wasn't signed, but I didn't need a signature to know who had made sure Mrs. Foster heard every ugly detail about my family situation. Maya had kept her promise. She wasn't going to help pick up the pieces. But she'd made damn sure there would be plenty of pieces to clean up. The final confrontation happened that evening, when Maya came home from her doctor's appointment to find me sitting at the kitchen table with our parents, Mrs. Henderson, and Jake. Mom had orchestrated what she called a family intervention, but it felt more like a trial. Mrs. Henderson looked uncomfortable, clutching her purse like a shield. I want you all to know that I never intended to cause family problems. Elena has been wonderful with Aurora, but after the phone calls I received. What phone calls? Dad asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. Mrs. Henderson glanced at Maya, who was standing in the doorway looking pale but defiant. Someone called yesterday explaining that Elena had been manipulating the situation. That she'd encouraged me to use the name Aurora specifically to hurt her pregnant stepsister. I never encouraged anything, I said desperately. You chose that name on your own. But you knew it was Maya's choice, Mrs. Henderson said softly. And you knew about your great-grandmother. When I mentioned considering Aurora, you could have said something about the family conflict. Maya finally stepped into the room. She didn't just stay quiet. She fed you stories about great-grandma Aurora to make sure you'd feel connected to the name. That's not, I started, then stopped. Because it was true. Maybe not consciously manipulative, but true nonetheless. Mrs. Henderson sighed. The other families in the neighborhood are concerned too. If this job opportunity caused problems in your own family, they're wondering what other situations might be misrepresented. The weight of losing everything, the college applications, the job opportunities, the respect I'd finally earned, should have crushed me. Instead, I felt something unexpected, relief. You're right, I said, looking directly at Maya. I did this on purpose. Not the way you think, but I wanted to prove I was worth something. I wanted to show everyone that I wasn't just the stupid stepsister who's only good for free babysitting. Maya's expression softened slightly. Elena. But I also wanted to hurt you, I continued. Because you spent 8 months making me feel worthless, and I wanted you to know how that felt. The room was silent except for the sound of Aurora fussing in her carrier. Mrs. Henderson reached down to comfort her baby, the baby whose name had started this whole mess. The thing is, I said, standing up slowly, I actually am good at this. Not because I'm too dumb for anything else, but because I genuinely care about kids. Even when their mothers treat me like garbage. Maya's eyes filled with tears. I never meant to make you feel worthless. Yes, you did. I wasn't angry anymore, just tired. Every time you called me stupid, every time you dismissed my goals, every time you acted like helping with Ethan was the best I could hope for, you meant to make me feel small. Jake cleared his throat. Maybe you two should talk privately. No, Maya said, wiping her eyes. She's right. I did treat her badly. I was stressed and overwhelmed, and I took it out on someone who was actually helping me. Mrs. Henderson stood up, adjusting Aurora's carrier. I should go. But Elena, for what it's worth, you are exceptional with children. Whatever happens with your college applications, don't let this situation make you doubt your abilities. After she left, Maya and I sat across from each other at the kitchen table while our parents retreated to give us space. I'm sorry, Maya said finally. About the phone calls to your schools. I was angry and hurt, and I wanted you to face consequences. I'm sorry too, I replied. About the name thing. About lying to everyone. About ending up in the ER because of stress I caused. Maya laughed shakily. You know what's funny? Aurora actually suits her. Mrs. Henderson's baby, I mean. And there are plenty of other beautiful names out there. What will you choose instead? I was thinking, maybe Elena. She smiled through her tears. After my stepsister who taught me that being smart and being kind aren't mutually exclusive. For the first time in months, I hugged Maya voluntarily. And this time, when she hugged back, it felt like we both finally understood what family was supposed to mean.